Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello. Let's go over a few things before we have the debate. There will be 6 speeches, and it will go as follows. First affirmative constructive, first negative constructive, second affirmative constructive, second negative constructive, first negative rebuttal, first affirmative rebuttal. During the constructives, we'll have cross-examinations in which the other side gets to ask questions. The constructives will be for a maximum of 5 minutes, and the cross-examinations will be 2 minutes, and the rebuttals will be 3 minutes. For the sake of time, we'll be doing 2 speeches per video. You will be the affirmative speaker because you're arguing against the status quo. The topic of this debate is in regards to the similarities in DNA between humans and chimpanzees, as that is one of the supporting points of evolution. Are we clear?
Yes.
Great, let's begin. Stephen King once said, "The trust of the innocent is the liar's most useful tool." Unfortunately, this way of life is what the scientific community has become. They cherry-pick their information to send out false, inaccurate facts, especially in regards to DNA similarities between chimpanzees and humans. To explain why this is, let's go over the process which initially brought this myth up, the flaws in how the process is done more currently, and the truth to the similarities between chimpanzees and humans. Before we do that, let's define and clarify the word genome, which is defined by Merriam-Webster 2024 Online Dictionary as, quote, one haploid set of chromosomes with the genes they contain, or in their other more broad definition, the genetic material of an organism. Back in the early 1970s, during the initial stages of DNA science, crude and indirect methods were used to denaturize DNA, or make it be from 2 joint strands to 2 separate strands, and zip it back up. Based on these studies, it was declared that chimpanzees and humans were about 98.5% similar, but only the most similar protein coding regions of the genome were compared, which is less than 3% of the total genome, according to Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins, who has a PhD in biology. What's more is that Jonathan Marks of the University of North Carolina actually discovered the results were manipulated to make the chimpanzees appear more similar to humans, as documented in his paper, The Rise and Fall of DNA Hybridization. As technology advanced, so did the research. In between the years 2000 and 2005, there have been a variety of experiments that yielded results that seem to have supported the idea that chimpanzees and humans were 98.5% similar. However, Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins and Dr. Jerry Bergman, who also has a PhD in biology, have found gaps and bias in the results. To quote from their article, Genomic Monkey Business, estimates of nearly identical human-chimp DNA similarity reevaluated using omitted data. Quote, data too dissimilar to be conveniently aligned was typically omitted, masked, and or not reported. Furthermore, gap data from final alignments was often discarded, further inflating final similarity estimates, end quote. Their website goes over many examples where this occurred and shows it became a trend for the experiments. However, there was a study done by Dr. Tompkins which evaluated 40,000 random chimpanzee genomes, and the results from the study is defined in previously mentioned article as, quote, results from this extensive and very objective study unequivocally indicate that the human chimpanzee genomes are at least 10 to 12% less identical than is commonly claimed. The human-chimp common ancestor paradigm, which claims a nearly identical DNA content, is clearly based more on myth and propaganda than real factual data. With this study, it is concluded that chimpanzees are 85% similar to humans. This is not enough for the common ancestor theory, as it requires 98% genome match. I guess you could say the evolutionists do all sorts of monkey business to make sure that the results are as close to that as possible, or else our whole model collapses. The similarities are explained due to the similar things chimpanzees and humans do, as we both eat, have a digestive system, has eyes, can use the bathroom, and have limbs. It's like how 2 completely different software programs have common code due to some similarities at the root of their programs. To summarize, it is proven that the results for proving similarities in DNA between chimpanzees and humans are cherry-picked and manipulated in order to fulfill the myth of common ancestor theory and evolution. Sadly, these scientists rely on the trust of the innocent to maintain their lives. Realistically, evolution is not supported with DNA, as there is only an 85% genome match, not the 99% genome match which is required, which is explained due to some similar natures that occur between the two. Thank you for listening, and I now stand open for cross-examination and questions of further clarification. What credentials do the scientists you have mentioned have? Dr. Jeffrey Tompkins and Dr. Jerry Bergman both have a PhD in biology. Why do you believe the results of the prior experiments are falsified? I look at chimps and I wonder, how can humans and chimps be so close in DNA genome, yet so far apart in appearance? Do genomes have a role in how a species looks? Yes. Do you present an outside source to support this? Not in this speech, no. I have no further questions at this time. I could trust a fact and always cross-question an assertion. This was said by Michael Faraday, and I agree. We can trust the facts and always cross-question an assertion. We have someone here who's asserting something that is just not true. They assert that humans and chimpanzees aren't similar enough in DNA for the common ancestor theory. Today, we will look at 3 credible sources that show that the human genome is close enough to the chimpanzee genome to support the common ancestor theory. But before we get into that, I would like to note that the affirmative speaker did not provide an outside source to support the claim that your genome determines how you look. How can we trust someone who does not have the needed credentials or outside source to support their assertions? With this, I am left questioning the validity of their claims provided in the first affirmative constructive, especially since we have Roy J. Britton, who has a PhD in nuclear physics and switched to biophysics as reported by Caltech, who presented a 95.2% genome match between humans and chimpanzees in 2002. We also have Ingo Eberberger, who has a PhD in biology, as reported by the Institute of Subbiology and Neuroscience, who presents a 98.8% similarity between human genomes and chimpanzee genomes in 2002. Lastly, we have Derek E. Wildman, who has a PhD in anthropology, who shows a 98.9% match in the human genome and the chimp genome. But one must ask, how many genomic bases did they analyze? Surely, if the numbers were small, the results would be inaccurate. Britain analyzed around 846,000 genomic bases. Ebersberger analyzed about 3 million genomic bases. Wildman analyzed 10,600,000 genomic bases. They all say the same thing. Humans and chimps are very close in DNA. So on one side, we have someone who asserts a claim, yet fails to bring in an outside source to support a crucial part of that claim. And on the other side, we have 3 scientists who all have a PhD that say that the human genome and the chimpanzee genomes are at least 95% similar. I will trust the facts and always cross-question an assertion. And the fact is, humans and chimpanzees are close enough in their genome to support the common ancestor theory. Thank you for listening, and I now stand open for cross-examination and questions of further clarification. For Britton, you cited he had a PhD in nuclear physics. What does that have to do with biology, a completely different topic? Nuclear physics does not have any relevance to biology. In all of the experiments, how many bases were aligned? I do not have that information on hand. How close are humans to other humans in their genome? I do not have that information on hand. I have no further questions.